gonna be.
How was it?
Brutal.
Miss Emerson is playing hardball.
Well, she's good at that. How was Michael Lye's testimony?
Rough.
We got basically creamed.
Interesting gambit, though. I mean, opening with a witness who was sympathetic towards the suspect.
Yeah, and then to get her to implicate me.
It was very effective.
Early days yet, gentlemen.
It was devastating. Look, the jury expects my enemies to nail me, but Michael's one of my biggest supporters.
Which is precisely why she brought her in. She's undercutting us. She's grabbing the momentum. It's exactly the way she works.
Well, how are we going to stop the bleeding here? Because I'm dying. We've only heard 2 witnesses so far.
Look, Rich. I'm doing my best. You've got to expect Teresa Emerson to build a strong case. But we'll get our turn. And when we do, we'll show the real picture of what happened to Grant. He shot himself. He implicated you. And the jury's going to know it.
Hey, couldn't have been that bad.
You weren't there, Felicia. It was horrible.
Well, what did you say?
That I talked to Ridge on the day of the shooting, and that I gave him the gun.
Well, now that doesn't sound very damaging. I mean, he was having the gun fixed for Mom, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like you saw him take the gun and shoot Grant, right?
No, but Felicia, your brother said some pretty hostile things about Grant that day. And I didn't even want to get into it. But the prosecutor kept pushing me, you know, and twisting my words around. And before I was through, it made it seem like I even thought that Ridge was guilty. You know, that's exactly what I didn't want to happen. That's my absolute worst fear.
What's Enrique doing here?
Well, he's been here from the start.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe he's, just interested.
Is he here?
Yep.
Good. We're back in session in 10 minutes.
That doesn't give you much time with him.
I don't need time.
Teresa, he's never been a witness before. He's nervous. He's going to need some coaching.
Just like Miss Lye. That's how I like them.
Yeah, congratulations. I heard you really broke her down.
Oh, yeah. I'll take credit for that when we win. For now, it's the evidence that's starring, not me. This case is a meat grinder.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Forrester, he's the meat.
There's still a long way to go. But in reality, Lieutenant, this could be over before Jonathan Young brings up his first witness.
So let's hear it. Did you shoot yourself in order to get Ridge put away? You gonna answer me, Grant?
Well, I can't believe you're actually asking me this question.
Well, I am, and I want you to tell me the truth. I need to hear it from you, Grant.
What's going on here?
My attorney/friend thinks I'm guilty.
I didn't say that.
Well, you might as well have.
What are you talking about?
He's asked me to defend myself against Hunter Jones and his idiotic theory.
Look, I was the one that told you. Look, we shouldn't discuss this in front of your wife, do you think?
We will never discuss it again, period. So, how are we doing on that adoption question?
The adoption question?
Yeah, I asked Connor to look in the procedure on me adopting the children.
But did you talk to Eric about this?
No.
Well, you know he has to go along with it.
And he won't?
Boy, that's a positive attitude.
Connor's right. Eric is never going to agree to this.
Bonnie, we have to do something. Rick is a troubled young man.
Well, it's not all just because it's Eric's fault.
Look, I'm not here to point fingers, and I don't care whose fault it is.
If this problem is as serious as you're making it, Grant. No, sorry.
There's no doubt that Rick is going through a very difficult period.
No, Brooke. That's the main reason I want to adopt.
Are you joking, man? Did you just say the word adopt?
Rick, how long have you been standing there?
Rick, you really shouldn't be listening in on our conversation.
Well, when they're about me, you better believe I'll listen in.
I think I should probably be leaving. We'll discuss this in the morning. Brooke, nice to see you again.
Right.
Rick, take it easy.
Are you out of your mind? Adoption? No way. Never.
Would you state your name, please?
Jake W. Garfield.
Mr. Garfield, what do you do for a living?
I'm a security guard at Forrester Creations.
And were you working the afternoon of March 21st, 1997?
Yes, I was assigned to the executive wing on the 4th floor.
Could you please tell us what happened that day, sir?
Well, I was at the guard desk when I heard a gunshot.
Are you sure it was a gunshot you heard?
I used to be a police officer. I know the sound of a gun discharging. I even suspect it was a .32.
And then what happened?
Then I headed in the direction of the sound, and as I rounded the corner, that's when I saw Ridge Forrester.
You saw Mr. Forrester. What was he doing?
Coming out of Mr. Chambers' office.
How much time had elapsed between your hearing the gunshot and your seeing Mr. Forrester leaving Grant's office?
15, 20 seconds, maybe?
Was Ridge walking?
No, he was running.
Toward you?
No, in the opposite direction.
And then, what did you do next?
I yelled, "Hold it."
And did he stop?
Only for a second or two, long enough to tell me to call 911.
And then what happened?
Then he ran away from me again.
And what did you do?
I stopped him and said, "You're not going anywhere." Then we all went into Mr. Chambers' office.
Now, Mr. Garfield, when you went into Mr. Chambers' office, what did you find?
I found Mr. Chambers lying on the floor in a pool of blood.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Rick, we're trying to decide what's best for you.
Mom, you would never let him adopt me, would you?
Honey, it's only something we're talking about.
Look, I already have a father. I don't need another one. Least of all a jerk like this guy.
Your witness, Mr. Young.
Mr. Garfield, 20 seconds after you heard the gunshot, you saw Ridge Forrester hurrying from Grant Chambers' office. Isn't that your testimony?
That's right.
All right. Now, could it have been 25 or even 30 seconds?
It's possible, I suppose, but not very likely.
Oh, were you timing the event?
Of course not.
Well, then your testimony as to how long it took is only a guess, right?
An estimate, counsel.
What's the difference between the two? I'll go on. Now, you say you saw Ridge hurry from Grant's office and rush down the corridor in the opposite direction from your approach. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did he see you approaching?
I don't know.
Well, then he wasn't necessarily trying to avoid you or to escape.
What else would he be doing, Mr. Young?
Oh, let's talk about that. Do you know where the emergency medical supplies are kept on that floor, Mr. Garfield?
Yes.
So when you saw Ridge hurrying down the corridor, was he heading in the direction of that first aid kit where it's kept?
I guess so.
Oh, come on, you don't guess so. You'd know where it is.
Okay, maybe he was. But what was he doing in the office to begin with?
Well, did you ask him that at the time?
No, sir.
Well, now, you're saying there's something unusual about him being in that office?
No.
In fact, if Ridge were in his office working, and he heard the same gunshot you did, it would have been very unusual of him not to rush to Grant's office next door, wouldn't it?
I guess so. But I didn't see him leave his office. I saw him leave Mr. Chambers' office.
Ridge's office is much closer to Grant's office than where you were when you heard the gunshot. Isn't that true?
It's closer.
And from where you were when you heard the gunshot, you could not see the doors to those offices, could you?
No, sir.
Oh, so you don't know whether Ridge might have left his office, gone to Grant's office, saw the body, and rushed out to get help, do you?
All in 20 seconds?
Well, wait a minute. Didn't you just say it might have taken 25 or 30 seconds? Now, when you say 20 seconds, you're just guessing again, aren't you?
Okay. Maybe it was 25 or 30 seconds. But in my professional opinion...
We're not interested in opinions, Mr. Witness. We're interested in facts.
Object to counsel's comments?
Yes, that objection is sustained. Stick to the facts, Mr. Garfield.
One more question, Mr. Garfield. How long have you been working at Forrester Creations?
About a month.
And who hired you? The personnel office?
No, it was Mr. Chambers.
Grant Chambers hired you? The CEO? Now, isn't that a little odd?
He wanted somebody he knew he could trust.
Oh, I take it then you've known Mr. Chambers for some time.
Yes.
You could even say that you're his guy, right?
You could say that.
Indeed I will, Mr. Witness. Indeed I will. I'm finished with this witness, Your Honor.
Miss Emerson?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may step down, Mr. Garfield.
The state calls Lieutenant Brad Baker to the stand.
Lieutenant Brad Baker.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Rick, I want you to apologize to Grant.
I'd drop dead first.
Rick?
Brooke, it's okay. Listen, Rick, if you want to be hostile with me, that's all right. It doesn't bother me. Because believe it or not, I know what you're going through. But there's one thing that I will not tolerate, and that's you being disrespectful to your mother. It hurts her. And believe me, one day when you're old enough, you're going to look back on it and regret having hurt her. Now, I want you to go up to your room, and I want you to cool off. And you come back when you're ready to talk about it.
Forget it. Because it's never gonna happen. You ruined my life. And you ruined Ridge's too.
What did you find when you and Officer Banks arrived at the scene, Lieutenant?
Mr. Chambers was lying on the floor of his office, covered in blood.
Was he conscious?
Not when we got there.
Tell us what happened next.
We secured the building. All of the exits were covered, as well as the exterior parking lot area. Of course, by that time, the paramedics had arrived and they were tending to the victim. Meanwhile, Officer Banks and I began to question some of those who were present. As I was questioning Mr. Forrester, Ridge, that is,
Thank you, Lieutenant Baker. That will be all.
Lieutenant Baker, tell us what happened next.
Ridge Forrester was taken into custody, questioned, and charges were brought against him.
And you did that on the basis of Grant Chambers' identification of Ridge as the one who shot him, is that correct?
We had other evidence too, Counselor.
Oh, you mean the gun that had at least 4 sets of fingerprints on it besides the defendant's?
That may be true, but 80% of those prints belong to your client.
And what other evidence did you have?
The gunshot residue on Ridge's hands.
Oh, yes, the barium and antimony, which may or may not have come from the discharge of a gun, is that right?
If you're asking for my professional opinion, then I would say yes. It was definitely gunshot residue on his hands.
Okay. So you had the gun and you had some barium and antimony. But you didn't have those things when the defendant was arrested and booked. The fingerprints weren't analyzed and lifted from the gun until the next day, and the GSR results didn't come in until much later.
So what's your point, Counselor, that I shouldn't have arrested him, even after the victim identified him?
Sir, by your own assessment, Grant Chambers had just regained consciousness after being shot at point-blank range. Now, isn't it possible, even likely, that he was in shock?
It's a conclusion, Your Honor.
I'll allow it. Answer the question.
It's possible, but that wasn't the case.
By whose assessment?
By my own.
Oh. Are you qualified in the area of psychological trauma? If so, we'd like to see your credentials.
So what are you saying, that I should have just ignored the victim's words?
No, you should have taken them into account as part of an ongoing investigation. But there was no investigation, was there? You arrested the defendant, booked him, you brought charges, all on the basis of the testimony of a man who may have been psychologically incompetent at the time you questioned him. Isn't that right?
No, Counsel, it is not.
Have you established a motive?
Yes.
And what do the police think that motive is?
I'll be glad to tell you. Ridge Forrester has a long and established hatred for Grant Chambers.
Oh, and how did Grant Chambers feel about Ridge?
I wouldn't say he's a member of his fan club.
Well, Chambers hated him, didn't he?
Wouldn't you if he shot you?
Oh, no, we're talking about before the shooting, Lieutenant. I mean, say, during the past 6 months, how did Chambers feel about Ridge?
I'm not aware of any strong feelings one way or the other.
You mean to tell me that in the course of your investigation, the police uncovered no ill feelings from Grant Chambers toward the defendant? Is that what you're saying, Lieutenant?
Look, they weren't friends. We know that.
Now, what other evidence did you find at the crime site? I mean, like this length of leather cord, this award that Grant Chambers won?
Yeah, we found a lot of those kinds of things. Fabric, the piping, the award, golf equipment, tea putter, a lot of items from Chambers' desk. We collected everything that we thought could possibly be relevant.
And what is relevant about this and this?
Well, to date, nothing.
But you collected them as evidence. There must be something.
Your Honor, where is he going with this?
Where are you going, Mr. Young?
Your Honor, I submit that the police collected this cord and this award because they felt they were important. Otherwise, why would they have collected them? Now, if you want to once, I could probably tell you why these things
You'll do no such thing.
Save it for your case presentation, Mr. Young. Any other questions?
Yes, Your Honor. One more thing. Lieutenant Baker, despite what you may think, I'm a great admirer of yours. You're a damn good detective and a man of integrity, just like most of the police officers in this city. But there is one thing I need you to tell me. Sir, in retrospect, do you really believe the police did as thorough a job as they could have in investigating this case? I'll withdraw the question.
Redirect, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Lieutenant, at the time that you arrested him, was there any doubt in your mind, and if there was, please feel free to express it, that Ridge Forrester shot Grant Chambers?
No, Miss Emerson, there wasn't. And since then, I haven't seen anything to make me change my mind.
Thank you, sir. That will be all.